You can bet they're holding their breath in Detroit, where Nancy is. Automakers there anxiously awaiting President Obama's big rescue announcement on Monday. Eric, let him fail. Is that the announcement you're hoping for?
Oh, please. Let him. You can't continue. Why do we have bankruptcy laws in the first place? Too big to fail. How about too stupid to survive? Let them go. All we're doing is we're inhibiting innovation. Move on, guys. GM, Chrysler, move on. By the way, I think you're going to get some more money on Monday.
All right, Nancy, out there in Detroit, there is a cost to that, isn't there, into letting these guys fail?
Well, Eric, as GM goes, so goes the country, and you just remember that. And I'll tell you what,
1955.
This is this is the heart of our manufacturing base. We did not have grants. These are loans, and they completely restructured this. Everyone took 2/3 haircut. Bondholders, shareholders, workers, everybody to come together to make these advanced vehicles, fuel efficient, 100-mile-per-gallon vehicle. The Chevy Volt. This technology is coming out next Thanksgiving. You're going to cut this off and let the Chinese take over one of the biggest markets for our consumer GDP?
First of all, Chevy Volt was supposed to be out by now. We're not sure it's ever going to see the light of day. By the way, Tesla's making a nice little car on the West Coast. They may beat the Chevy Volt to the market.
Toby, you were laughing.
Nancy. First off, bankruptcy. First off, we have 14 plants in the United States which are making money right now. They're all located in some place other than Michigan or unionized states. So let's not kid ourselves about that, number one. Number two, bankruptcy allows them to renegotiate.
Japanese companies?
No,
these are talking about Japanese companies.
There could be Japanese companies, there could be German companies, but 90% of the revenues, Nancy, 90% of the economic activity happens in the United States, parts, jobs, etc. Number two,
but they're losing money, Toby. They're losing money.
Well,
they're losing. It's not just the U.S.
Yeah, but what the government's trying to do is to decide how much of the auto problem is the economic problem and how much is the marketing and manufacturing problem. Guess what? They can't solve any of those problems by keeping them in business in a false way. We have to let them restructure. That means package bankruptcy.
Okay, Pat, he says prepackaged bankruptcy. That's an important point, isn't it, where everybody basically agrees on this?
Yeah, that's the important point here, is that, I mean, bankruptcy is really the only option to rationalize these firms and, get them into a position where they potentially could be competitive down the road. But you have to do it in what's called a prepackaged bankruptcy, where you come to the table ahead of the bankruptcy and negotiate who's going to take the pain on all sides. Because if you just let them fail in a disorderly fashion, that does cause a lot of economic pain that's not needed. But a prepackaged bankruptcy is unquestionably the way to go.
Gary B., you agree?
That's what they've done
Nancy.
right now.
All right, let me get...
They are not in a prepackaged bankruptcy.
No,
that's
they're
absurd.
not. No, they're not. Nancy, what do you mean?
Well, okay, so what they did is a viability plan that was due, it's due March 31st. They said you have to come together. Everybody has to take a 2/3 cut. You have to have a turnaround plan. No, we're not going to give you the rest of your loan.
No, that is not a bankruptcy.
That is not.
Sorry, they're still getting money from the government. Okay.
Yeah, but you go into bankruptcy, you're not going to sell any more cars.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me just jump in here. Please allow me this. Allow me this, Nancy.
Okay.
Allow me this, please.
Quickly, Eric.
Real quickly. You've flown Continental, you've flown US Air, you've flown airlines, taking your life in your hands that have been in bankruptcy, and then they come out of bankruptcy. Yes, still fly them, you'll still buy a car.
It's not a 10-year commitment. Buying a car is a 10-year commitment. So what? You lose one flight, $200. A 10-year commitment.
Okay,
every study has shown it.
I got to let Gary B. get in here. Go ahead.
Well, I tell you what, Nancy is in Detroit there. I used to live in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and they made the same arguments then. Oh, my gosh, we can't lose Bethlehem Steel. All the steel making will go overseas. And a lot of it did go overseas, and guess what? We're okay. Things worked out fine. You know what? GM got into this problem themselves, and now they're coming back again, by the way, asking for more money. Let me tell you a little story about GM. I just went last week, and the lease was up on my car to a GM dealer. I said, email me on Monday with some lease prices for the new Chevy Traverse. Guess what? Never heard from them. Now, maybe that's just a one-off, but the problem is in GM's marketing, in their products, and what they have, they just didn't get the job done. Like textile industry, like steel industry, they need to be allowed to fail.
They're just not used to talking to car buyers, I think, Gary B. But okay, Pat.
Yeah, well, maybe that was it.
All right, Pat, you get in, and then I got to let Nancy have the last word. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I think the warranty issue is a red herring, especially if you go into a pre-pack, because you can go into a pre-pack, say, hey, America, we will still honor those warranties going forward, even though we are restructuring, and the problem gets solved.
Okay, Nancy, go ahead.
We sell 50% of the market right now. This is going to be the turnaround story of the century. When Detroit starts whipping the butts off of everybody else, and it's the comeback of America, then we're going to come back to this show, and I can say, I told you so.
All right, you got to give her credit, guys. She takes you all on, all right? All right. Up next, though, random drug tests for anyone who's on welfare or unemployment. It could soon be the law in your